Australia right now does not fully exhibit free speech. No, we're not going to stand for people coming into our country and acting like it's theirs for the taking. We are not asking for the world right now. We're literally just having conversations, and there's so much scrutiny around that. It's just a bit depressing, honestly, at the moment. And let's be honest, its oppression annoys me, like really just even with this modern feminism movement, is aimed at destroying the family unit. Hold up, what is actually going on here? And then just remembering, and this is the ironic part, that we live in a country of abundance. Do you want to live in a Western country? Alright, you guys, welcome back to another video. I'm super excited to get into this video right now because there's so much shit happening at the moment, and there's a lot of stuff that happens this week, and I feel like we come every single episode and basically say that exact thing, like I'm sick of this shit happening, I'm so tired, I'm sick of this, but that's the state that our country is in at the moment. So let's just get into it, guys. Now, the first thing, what really gets to me is watching people try to take us down when we're literally just speaking. Okay, we're literally just having conversations, and there's so much scrutiny around that. We're literally just talking about opinions, about ideas, about political perspectives, and it's receiving so much hate. And so many people want to try to take each other down for doing that exact thing. Which brings me, and I need to slow down how I speak, because sometimes in these videos, I see comments of people being like, you're speaking 100 miles a minute. It's because I get frustrated and passionate and I need to slow down. So, taking a breath. But it brings me to my next topic. We gotta remember that we're Australian, guys. Okay, that sounds silly to say, but we fought against dictatorships. Okay, we stood up, we fight against oppression. So I think we all need to remember that. When people try to come for us, when laws get passed that makes it harder for us to speak, we gotta remember that our history shows enormous strength. So we got to keep fighting for our country. We got to keep standing up for our country. We need to say no to this oppressive rhetoric. And let's be honest, it's oppression. It is oppressive, okay? We got to say no to that, to these oppressive laws that are getting passed. It's a no. And sometimes I think, God, it's just a bit depressing, honestly, at the moment, looking at the state that our country is in, watching the news, whether it be globally, whether it be just watching what's happening in the Western world, it can definitely get you down at times. It can just build up and you're just like, oh, what is happening? But then I thought, hold on, sometimes it feels like that Australia is sometimes determined by what's happening in politics, which I understand politics is a huge deal to do with the trajectory of our nation. But just like mental wise, I think we've got to get back to why we're actually fighting for our country. And you guys, me, everybody watching this, everybody commenting, why are we actually fighting and speaking up for our country? To me, it's because our country is the best in the world. It's not because what's happening in politics for the moment. No, it's because of our beauty, our nature, our culture is absolutely awesome. You know, going to the beach, having bushwalks in our cities and our outbacks is brilliant. And that's why we're so passionate about what is happening in politics, because it gets back to that reason of why. You know, our animals, our people, that's what we're fighting for. We're fighting for our day-to-day sort of casual life, where it used to be, you know, you're making a good income, like per capita, we're pretty good here in Australia, even still, and having, you know, chilling out, and that's what we're fighting for. So while we talk about politics, while that's a huge, important point because it's how our country is run, I think we got to get back to the why. You know, why are we fighting for our country? And for me, it's that reason. And also, just another point to add here. It's not just the podcasters and the people who are making videos about what is happening. It's everybody that's watching what is happening right now and waking up to the fact. It's everybody who is liking posts, commenting what their opinions are, and getting away from the MSM. And just adding to this, what really annoys me, really just, and it partly because it's so ironic. It is incredibly ironic, okay? And it's seeing Australians suffer, whether it be cost of living, trying to move out of home, especially for the youth at the moment, or just seeing how sad it is to see our country erode. And then just remembering, and this is the ironic part, that we live in a country of abundance. Okay, I saw a video the other day and I reposted it on my story of, I think it's an American commentator basically saying like, what are you Australians doing? Like, you live in a country where you have critical minerals just absolutely everywhere and you should be in an abundance of wealth. Paraphrasing there, but that's what he basically said. And I was like, that's exactly right. Okay, we're called the lucky country for a reason. And we have every possibility to have every citizen of Australia absolutely thriving. However, due to decades of successive governments, we are now in this position. And it's frustrating, it just annoys me. And like I said before, it's because it's just so fucking ironic. Like, it's ridiculous. And also, gotta pace myself. God, I'm fucking flying through this right now. Hold on. And also, adding to this, I think it's a really strong topic here in Australia of how we view our politicians. And in my opinion, rightfully so, okay? You know, a lot of them do make very interesting moves, okay? And then we question, you know, whether they're putting Australia first or maybe if they're working in their own benefit. That's not ours. But I want to change that. I want to have every politician and people working for the Australian people, I want to have it be seen as one of the most honourable roles that you can take up in society. Because that's what it should be. It should not be a role where people don't listen to the people that are at the baseline paying them. It should be a position that should be an absolute honour and should be one of the most selfless things ever. Because you're, like, let's just say it how it is, you're literally representing hundreds or thousands or millions of people. And that's a huge thing. And I think in this society, being a politician is sort of just tainted because of the track record that some bring to the table. But I think we got to change that. So to do that, we got to hold politicians more accountable and vote for the party that holds these values. And now I've just been sort of thinking, especially this week and just sort of building up in the back of my mind, that a lot of the times, whether it be the MSM, whether it be, I don't know, some random article that has gotten people, you know, caught up and angry about it and therefore debating about it. And I'm not being a hypocrite here, but I do it too. But I think that sometimes it gets away to what the baseline problem actually is. And to me, it could serve as a bit of a distraction. So brings me to my next point. I feel like we can all get caught up in sort of the nitty-gritty sort of things of these topics, which are super important to get into. As in, you know, if you're talking about immigration, for example, you do need to get into, okay, how are we actually going to bring this into play? What is actually going to happen? Deportations, what does that look like? And get into that nitty-gritty sort of stuff about it and really debate into that. However, I think a lot of the times, it sometimes blindsides people from talking about what the actual problem is. And then we can get all caught up in debating these other sort of side arguments that doesn't actually have anything to do with what the core problem or the core topic may be. For example, this immigration debate. Okay, let's get back into what the actual core question is. And I made a short form about this the other day, and it was really interesting to see a lot of comments under it. But I think the core question and the core baseline is, do you want to live in a Western country? If you answer no, then obviously that will lead you down political beliefs that resonate with that answer. Okay, and that's fine to have, all right? But if you answer yes, then obviously you want to cut mass immigration. And I feel like if you propose that question to any lefty or just anyone and say, hey, you know, actually at the baseline, do you want to live in a Western country? And if they, you know, get into their holier than thou speech and say, no, I do not, then just tell them. And if, you know, if they're a woman, it's a better argument overall because you have so many other points as well that will resonate more deeply. So I would just say to them, well, in some non-Western countries, especially women, you know, you don't have equal rights to men. You'll most likely not be able to wear whatever piece of clothing you want. That's just the reality. Okay, so that Australia right now does not fully exhibit free speech. However, in places of non-Western countries, it's a lot of the time non-existent. There is pretty much no democracy. There is no equal rights for all. Not everyone is seen equal based on basically if you're a human or not. I'm not saying equal. Then I would bet that their answer would probably change. And if they say, right, yes, I do want Australia to be a Western country, then maybe you've just changed their minds a little bit on what their stance of mass immigration will be. So guys, that's just what I've been sort of thinking this past couple of weeks. Let me know your perspective on that, because I think it's just quite interesting. Do you think the exact opposite and think it's very important to get into the nitty-gritty stuff and don't see it as being blindsided? But let me know your opinions on that. But we talk about immigration a lot. We talk about free speech a lot, which are super important topics. But now I just want to get into something else that's happening in society at the moment. Okay, and it's something that I think about quite a lot, and I think that's a really important topic in society, and it's modern feminism. Okay, it's running rampant with young women at the moment. And we have young men told that they shouldn't be masculine, heavily to do with modern feminism. And I think, just in my opinion, that those two things are just biologically incompatible with what humans actually want from both sides of the fence. And therefore, that creates a weakness in society. Destroying the family unit is a weakness. And what I'm interested in, and I have had a look into it, so let me know if you want an episode around this, but what I'm interested in is who created, funded, and peddled the modern feminism movement. That's what I'd be interested in, so let me know if you want that episode. But furthering this, I don't think this is controversial to say, but I suppose by some people it'd be deemed heavily controversial. But I think modern feminism and many other ideologies are absolutely aimed at destroying the family unit. Because like we said, if you destroy the family unit, that's a weak society. And I know a lot of people say that, why women were heavily marketed to get into the workforce is so the government could tax two people in the household and therefore, generate more money. But also if the woman was at home, obviously the kids would be shoved into the schooling system. That's exactly true. I think that's exactly true. I think that with this modern feminism movement, it's aimed at destroying the family unit, gaining more control, gaining more money, and therefore creating a weakness. So obviously, if you couldn't tell, I'm not a modern feminist, okay? I do not need to put myself into a box of being a modern feminist. And this is another thing. I feel like people think that advocating for an issue that has to do with women's rights or things to do with women means that you're a modern feminist. No, it's not. Don't put yourself into that box. If I want to speak up about something because it's disgusting that it is happening, I will do so. Okay, I do not need to call myself a modern feminist for speaking up for women's rights to be protected, for speaking up about the demonic shit that still happens to women. I do not need to call myself a modern feminist for speaking up for those issues. And furthering this, many topics that do come up is, I remember a couple months ago, it wasn't too long ago, the Iranian women who were just playing soccer here and the war kicked off and they refused to sing the Iran national anthem. And if they went back to Iran, they would be facing some pretty harsh results due to this. Let me know, guys, if I'm remembering that correctly. It was a little bit ago, but that's how I'm pretty sure the story went. I made a video about it. Many other people on the right made videos about it and spoke up and basically said that these women are going to face extreme, harsh consequences if they return back to their country. And they're in Australia at the moment. Trump was saying that, if, I'm pretty sure I'm remembering this correctly, if Australia doesn't support them, then they can come to the US. And I was saying, they're in Australia, okay? We have to do everything we can to protect them. But where were the modern feminists then? Why weren't they speaking up about that? I saw no videos about them speaking up for the women who were facing persecution. None. So I think this whole movement is a facade to try to divide men and women. And if you divide men and women, you have a weak society. And also, what we're speaking about now isn't some extreme rhetoric that people make it out to be. Seriously, I've said this before. We are not asking for the world right now. Getting back to Australia right now, we are asking to simply preserve the culture that Australia has. We are simply asking that we actually close off our borders and look after our citizens. That is a basic point. It should be basic, fundamental to a country to say, you know what? No, we're not going to let people in from other nations who feel like they can just walk into our country, commit all these crimes and still stay here. And better yet, no, we're not going to stand for people coming into our country and acting like it's theirs for the taking. No, what we're actually going to do is look after our citizens before anything else. Guys, that's literally what we're asking for right now. And we're literally asking to have sovereign borders. We're asking to be self-sufficient. We're asking to be a respected country that further respects its citizens. That's not asking to have the best GDP in the world. That's not asking, like, I don't know, to have NRL will be the same fandom of soccer. Okay, and I'm sure I'll receive a lot of comments around that. But just a side note, we're not asking for these extra things or extraordinary things. We are literally asking for our country to operate for its people. Now, oh my God, you can't wrap your head around it. Like, we're not asking for the world. We're literally just asking for fucking safety. Now, something else that keeps coming to mind when talking about all of these things is that expression, and I'm pretty sure a colonel in America was the first one to say it. Don't fact check me on that. But it's the saying of freedom is not free. And more, continuing to do these videos, reading comments from you guys, which is absolutely great, I just keep realizing more and more every single day that freedom is certainly not free. And also, just another side note, we're going through heaps of topics here. One Nation has recently dropped a little bit in the polls the day that I'm filming this, obviously. When I posted, it might be different. But on the day I'm filming, the One Nation has dropped in the polls a little bit. And I've seen a lot of videos of people saying that it doesn't matter. Like, you know, they have a good run so far, and this shows that a lot of people are still supporting them. And, you know, 2 to 3% drop doesn't mean that much because, you know, maybe Labour's targeting them instead of the Libs, and that's why they've dropped a little bit, but there's still heaps of support out there. Look, I know there's heaps of support out there, but I think this is not a huge thing, but I think it is an important topic to be talking about, okay? Because there are still a hell of a lot of Labour supporters and a lot of Lib supporters, okay? And I've said it for a long time now. This cannot be a fad for One Nation. This needs to last till 2028. And we need to make sure it does last till 2028 so we can get One Nation elected. Obviously, another perspective here is, you know, polls, you acknowledge them, but don't read too much into them because, you know, it's a couple of hundreds of people and, you know, it doesn't represent all of Australia truly. However, it still just shows that we need to keep One Nation growing. It reinforced that this cannot be a short-term spike because what has happened over the past couple of months that has turned people to One Nation? Okay, Bondi happened. ISIS rise returned, mass immigration realization, a lot of things have happened that would make people go, hold up, what is actually going on here? That are not as ordinary for a country in a year to be happening and occurring sort of thing. So back to the original point, this cannot be a short-term spike. It needs to be a long-term movement. And also, just another point to add here, I feel like a lot of times we do agree, like commenting and reading comments and stuff, we do agree with a lot of the same things. But if we want to make a good change, we got to get these videos and perspectives and stuff out to people who do support the Greens and go, hey, maybe listen to this other perspective. So if you know anyone who's on the left or whatever, maybe send them this video and maybe they'll change their perspective because it's great for us to be Green, but also we do want to try to get more voters for One Nation so we can bring our country back to greatness, so we can have free speech enriched in the Constitution. Please let that happen. My God. But anyway, that's the end of this episode. I hope you all enjoyed. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below and let's keep fighting for our country. Thanks, guys.